So it's about what is SEO, why you should, the different sort of elements of SEO. It can seem a little scary to someone who's not techie or your background's not in that space. So I like to think that I can try to explain it to people in a way that's a little bit easy to understand. And so you can walk away from here. I think you all got a little show bag with a digital Laneway to-do list. Write things on there. If you can walk away with 1 or 2 things today to tweak on your website, that's what I want to be able to give you in this session. So let's dive straight into it in terms of what is SEO. So this is the fancy term for it, is basically the work you do to influence the natural search results so your website ranks well for the chosen keywords you use. So what does it actually mean, I guess, and why should you care? And this is where I think Ash touched on in his introduction there, was just before I give you the answer on the next slide, there is a great, like I'm a digital marketer all-rounder, there's a great need for people to be on Facebook, to be on Instagram, to build your brand in other places. But it's like with your website, you own that racetrack, you own that stadium, you can make changes to it, you can do what you want. Facebook can change their website tomorrow, they can close your page down if they want. Instagram can do the same. So they're changing the rules of, you know, at the moment, Reels is really hot on Insta and there's different things. So the only real thing you own for your brand, 100%, is your website. And I think that's why SEO is so important, because what SEO is doing, it's capturing people's attention while they're in search mode. So they're ready to buy from you. And when I'm looking on Instagram, a lot of the time, I'm looking for pretty pictures and I'll like stuff, but I'm not in that frame of mind necessarily, unless it's some, you know, late night regretful purchase that you're skirting through and you buy it. But I'm not necessarily even on Facebook in buying mode. But for example, my husband, after 3 years of nagging, just yesterday, we needed to find someone to install a remote garage door so I don't have to get out of in the rain in the car. And we didn't know anyone. We've only been here 3 years. So we didn't go to Facebook. We didn't go to Instagram. We Googled remote garage door installer Coffs Harbour. So it's more likely if someone is searching for a bookkeeper, I'm just talking to people in the room, a nutritionist, dietitian, virtual assistant, whatever it might be, or even like a business association that they want to join when they move to an area, co-working space, the place they're going to look is on Google. So we need to capture their attention while you're there. That's why I get a little bit passionate about your website really is the place that you should really own. And it's also where you get results. People who are finding you for the search terms you type in, they want what you're selling. So they're further down that conversion funnel to being able to buy from you. So I guess that's hopefully sold you in on why you should care about SEO. And when I talk about this presentation, SEO is search engine optimization. There's more than one search. There's Bing, there's DuckDuckGo, but I'll talk about Google pretty much throughout this presentation, which is interchangeable with any search engine, just because it's the smartest search engine out there. It's the most sophisticated. And if you can dominate Google, you can easily dominate Bing and the other platforms because their algorithm is not as sophisticated. So what I want to just quickly show you is Google is actually stupidly smart. So you can see here, if you type in copywriter Coffs Harbour, the result's going to show a map, which is called a local pack. So when I'm searching something geographically, it's going to show a map first and then the search results. So you can see here, position 1 of the search and position 1 is the local pack is captured by me. Most people though are going to click on that map when they're doing a location specific. So if you just want to work with businesses in Coffs Harbour, even if you don't, I work with businesses all around Australia, capturing that is most important. But if I live down towards Sawtell, if I put a Sawtell address on there, see how it's not in the map there, I wouldn't rank. So I've got my office in the CBD and that's what's ranking. So I don't have time to go into heaps of detail on the map, but when you're searching different things, it'll show different results. So you see here, if you search my brand name, over on the right-hand side there, you'll see what's called the knowledge panel, which is the expanded version of my local pack. You'll also see that every single thing on that first page, I own my brand. I own that whole first page. If you search the name Cath Fowler, same thing. Everything there, it might not necessarily be my website. It might be my Facebook, my Instagram, my listing on the chamber page, you know, listing on 6 Degrees, whatever it might be. There'll be different things, but I own that whole page. No one else has that real estate. When we look at typing in something else like kids' bank accounts Australia, you can see that thing in the middle in the with the picture is called a featured snippet. So a different thing, and you see all those ads, all the banks want this phrase. My little old blog I wrote and just, you know, typed away has that featured snippet there over like finder.com and big websites, because I wrote the blog in a way that would get me that featured snippet. So what I'm trying to prove here is just Google isn't the same for every search that you do. So if I want to buy kids' clothes, it's going to give me things to go and buy and shop. If I want to look for cute sloths, it's going to give me videos and pictures of cute sloths. Someone's laughing at me there in the audience. She's throwing me with the cute sloths. But, you know, if I'm searching that, I'm searching to see imagery. So that's the very first thing to bear in mind when you're trying to think of SEO for your website is, and what keywords you want to go after. Google that to see how you can write a page that relates to what it is. If you want to rank for cute sloths, don't go write a 100-page essay on cute sloths. Whack a whole group of images on your site and rank them for that. So I guess the point of all that is the #1 spot in Google is no longer the be-all, end-all, holy grail. People call me up every day. Can you get me to #1 on Google? And I say, I'm not going to promise you that, but I can tell you what I can do. I'm going to do this, this, and this, because I'm #3 at that kid's bank account, but I've got the featured snippet, which is position 0. So all I will say is it's not that easy to get the #1, and you need to decide if that's what you want to actually get. Being #1 in the search results from a local perspective is not as good as being #1 in that map listing. So you need to be a little bit strategic about how you write your content, and we'll go into that in a little bit more detail. But these are all the different type of things that show up in the Google search results. So I guess we're getting to the nitty-gritty of it is, okay, so that's good. I want my website to be SEO optimized. How do I do that? And I guess I'll relate it back to a scenario almost of in-person networking and word of mouth, which a place like here in Coffs Harbour, a lot of people will say, I actually was talking to someone in the room about printing my business cards because another business recommended them to me weeks ago. So in person, face-to-face, we refer to people we trust. If I wanted to improve my health and things like that, I say, oh, go see Jenny because she is going to put you on the right, you know, nutrition plan, dietitian. She cooks lovely meals and all that kind of thing. If you need a bookkeeper, go see, I can't remember your name, but someone in the back of the room. So people that you have relationships with, you refer to. And Google essentially does the same thing. It refers to websites that it trusts. And it's just a little bit of a different way of trusting. And there's certain signals that you can get your website to send to Google to determine whether you have a trustworthy site and a site that clearly answers the person's question. So this is really how you earn trust. And in a 45-minute presentation, I can only touch on really little parts of it. But there's what's called an algorithm, and that has around 200 ranking factors to determine who gets that elusive position 1 in Google. Not even any Google employee knows what those 200 ranking factors are. It's literally different teams working on it. So no SEO consultant can say they know it all. If they do, run a mile because they're telling you rubbish. But there are big factors that are bigger ranking factors than others. So the big two at the moment, or in the past year or two, is Google's algorithm now reads the mobile version of your site. So if you've back in the day, people used to strip down their mobile version of the site and not include as much info and stuff. If your website doesn't look good on mobile, you can't scroll it easily, the buttons are unclickable, you've got just tiny little text and hyperlinks, that's harder for someone to navigate the site. So the biggest thing, and we fall guilty to it as well, me and my employee Ella, we're looking at the site on desktop, okay, now look at it on mobile. What's it look like on mobile? So that's one thing I would definitely say. You need to make sure you've got a mobile responsive website. And the other thing that's really important that you will get, I guess, a detriment to if you don't have it is you need to have a secure website. So you need what's called an SSL certificate. If you don't have that, if you're using, say, a big browser like Chrome, you could get a message saying this site is not secure. You might have seen that before. It used to only be something e-commerce stores where you sell stuff had to have. But now every website on the interwebs, if you don't have that SSL certificate, a lot of them, depending what platform you're on, a lot of them give it to you for free with your hosting. A lot of the ones where you build, they have it. Some of them might charge, but it's less than $100. But whenever I build a website, I use a free SSL certificate. But that's a fundamental base foundation of your SEO house, is to get that right. And then the last one here is things you can do really wrong, is if you steal content from somewhere else, and say there's information being published in a health journal or something, and you publish it on your site, duplicate content will make it hard for your website to get ranking. If your content's really poor, I get called up by people say, oh, I just had a website built, but it's not ranking in Google. And then I go to, and they've got 0 words on the page. I'm like, Google's got nothing to read to know what your site is about. So if you don't factor in the words on your page and the copywriting just as much as the pretty pictures, you're going to find it harder to rank in SEO. And then we have the classic case, which I'm sorry if there's any tradies on the line, but that the tradie website seems to do is, I'm a plumber in Coffs Harbour and I do plumbing in Coffs Harbour. Keyword stuffing. So you just sound robotic. You're putting it in there too much. It used to work 15 years ago. It simply doesn't work today. So, and there's no point ranking first for that, getting people to your site, and then you sound like an absolute bumbling fool. You want to actually build connection with people with the words that you put on there. So you don't have to stuff in that you're a bookkeeper in Coffs Harbour 100 times anymore. So this is getting to the fun stuff. This is the stuff that are the core pillars of SEO. And there's 3 main components. There's the technical side of it, which is almost like you do it good once, you do it right, and to a degree, it's a set and forget, but this is where people can get it wrong a lot of the time. Then there's content, and then there's backlinks. I'm going to go into each 3 of these sort of areas into greater detail in this presentation, but there is also other signals as well, like social signals if you're mentioned in other websites. If you're say you are in the health space and you're quoted in a journal or things like that, there's trust signals. They all factor in, but they're less important than these 3 core components. This is, if you do all 3 of these right, you're going to get a website that Google loves. So the first one is the technical side of it, which is speed, mobile responsive, and can your website be crawled? So let's look a bit more detail in that. So when someone goes to your website, ideally you want it to load in 3 seconds or less. So there's a couple of ways you can test it. I haven't put it in the presentation, but I'm happy to share, or if we can add it to the chat, and they're free. One of them is called GT Metrics, METRIX, and one of them is called Pingdom, PINGDOM, tools. And you can just put your URL in and see how long it takes to load. I did one yesterday. Someone said, oh, I built a website on a Wix site. I'm like, oh, they said it's getting better. I said, oh, just check it. 12 seconds it took their website to load. So it wasn't, they need to work on how they can fix that up. And I do a lot of SEO audits for people. And the thing that stuffs them up the most is they have images that are just too big. They'll get a photo taken from a photographer, it's 2-3 meg. And what will end up happening is it's just slowing down your site too much. You want to squish it down. You want to, if you know how to use Photoshop, you want to download it as 100 kilobytes, max 200 kilobytes. That's the size anything should be uploaded to your website. And I know so many people love sliders on their homepage. They are usually the biggest culprit in slowing down your site. I've come from the corporate world. They love sliders too, because then every little person in the marketing department can have their little thing scrolling across and feel like they're on the homepage, but no one actually scrolls them, especially when they're on a mobile. People aren't doing that these days. You're better planning your website to not have sliders, or if you have them, really make sure that you've optimized them, because they kill so many websites, those sliders. And I think there's a website purely dedicated to why you should kill sliders. And it's all these facts about they just literally, no one looks past the first one, so don't have them. And you want to use a quality host, which is hard if you're on something like Wix and Squarespace because it's all built in. But if you're on a CMS called like WordPress, if you can try and get an Australian-based server, like there's local IT companies and stuff in Coffs that have it, or somewhere where their server is in the geographic region of Australia, worst case Asia. If you start going US and Europe, that's going to add lag to your website. So I always choose to build websites with an Aussie host. And if you are on WordPress, you can install a caching plugin, which essentially kind of squishes the code your website's built into. So it really does depend what your website's built in on as to how much you can do. But the biggest thing to do is look to see how big your images are, because if your website takes more than 3 seconds, that's what's likely killing your site. Oh, my little GIF hasn't worked there. That's a bit of a shame. It was basically someone addicted to their mobile phone. So I've already talked about this, mobile responsiveness. You want to make sure that your website is built to be mobile responsive. And you want to make sure it's actually crawlable by Google. So when you build a website, often in the back end, you can tick a little box that says, I want this to be hidden from being crawled, why I build it. And a lot of people forget to untick that, and then they don't get found in Google. You want to also ensure, and this is getting techie, you want to also ensure that you've got a site map. So Google can read the content of your website and know what's on it well. This is probably a couple of hours work for a developer or someone like me to do if you don't have it and this is outside of your comfort zone. And what you can do is you can check what pages Google is reading of your site by typing into Google site, ... like colon, and then your domain name.com.au or whatever it is. So that will show up every page of your site that Google's crawling. So if you type that in and only 1 or 2 pages are coming up, you've got a crawlability issue. So those are the core components from a tech perspective. It can be overwhelming, that side of it, if you don't feel super comfortable with building websites and things. So it might be something you want to get someone to look at. But that's, I guess, the base foundation of your website. If you get that wrong, all the work you do on top to write great content, all the work you do on top to get links from other places, you're starting on the back foot. You're starting the race with, bricks tied to your shoes, basically. So you want to make sure that you're getting that right. So what I'm going to move into now, and I'm mindful I'm kind of flying through this because there is a lot to cover and I want to give you as much information as possible and maybe leave time for questions, is this is starting to get into the content side of your website. So a well-built website should answer these questions. Can I tell what you do and why you're the best of it within the first 5 seconds of landing on your website? So generally speaking, whacking your big logo up the top with a big picture and nothing else is not going to answer that question. Saying welcome to our website is not going to answer that question. You want to say, like, if you look at my website, it says helping businesses get found and look good online. That's the first thing you see when you land on my site. Basically, my unique selling proposition. It tells you what I can do for you. So that's what you want to make sure is quite clear the second someone lands on your site. They know what you're about. If it's the Chamber of Commerce, you're the voice of business in Coffs Harbour. That should be what you're telling me on the first part of your site. If you're offering virtual assistance, I'll take the hassle away from your admin, whatever it might be. That's what you want to sell first. The second thing, and some people could sort of hide this away, but the point of you've worked so hard to get someone to your website, how quickly can I get in touch with you? Can I see how easy it is to find your contact form? Do you have a phone number at the top of your site? If you don't want your phone number out there, do you have an email? You've worked so hard to get someone there. For the love of God, let them be able to contact you. So don't hide how to get in touch with you. If someone's coming to your website, bang, I can see straight away, usually top right-hand corner is good. You'll see it on tradie websites and stuff, or booking websites for tourism. Book now. It's up in the top right-hand corner because that's where our eyes go to, because that's where we expect to see a call to action. And I guess that leads into, is your navigation menu easy to understand? So there's a bit of a trend now more in, I guess, the graphic design space to just have what's called the hamburger menu, like 3 lines. You see it on your mobile phone view, and that's how you get to the menu. But I'm still of the belief from a UX point of view, so user experience, make it easy. You don't have to necessarily have a lot, but like home, about, services or products, contact. Make that easy to see up the top. And don't get too cutesy with what you call them as well in a navigation. Get cute in your copy if that's your brand tone of voice, but don't, like, if I want to contact you, just call it contact. Just say holler at me or something like that. You can do that elsewhere in your buttons and stuff. Keep your nav simple. The biggest brands in the world's nav, go look at them, the big e-commerce stores, they're super simple. They spent millions of dollars to come back to that. Keep it simple. So, and I like, this is again, personal preference. I like to have the logo in the top left-hand corner so you can, people intrinsically, we've been trained that when we click on the logo, it takes us back home. So I think that's something that all websites should still have. That's not so much an SEO thing. This is all just a usability thing. And this leads on to, I guess, more of that usability. And this isn't really an SEO thing, but you work so hard to get someone to your website, let's work to get them to actually contact you as well. So you want the most important things in your top navigation. So for 6 degrees, it would be joining, like join the co-working space or join the 6 degrees membership. That should be somewhere easy to navigate in your top nav. And then you can have navigation below that. So if you're an e-commerce store, you'd have like your categories of, you know, women's tops, clothes, dresses, and then you can have your categories below, you know, short, long, mid, whatever it might be. And what you should have is more pages as your menu goes down. So you don't want too much cluttered at the top, but you know, you've got more stuff as it goes down. And you don't want one section to be this long and another to be really short. You want to try and make it so there's a bit of evenness, if you can, to most of your structure and have similar things grouped together. And make sure any of those high traffic pages you have on your site, which are usually your home page, which obviously going to be findable, but your about page and your contact page are then usually the most frequently visited. You want them to be easy to find in your navigation. And you also want, I don't have time to go into detail about this, but you want to look to, maybe if you do need to get a developer involved or you feel confident doing it, install Google Analytics, Google Search Console, potentially Google Tag Manager, but you probably do need a bit of tech skills there, and a tracker to be able to track how you're doing in terms of rankings for your site. So Google Analytics, a lot of people, like if you've got your website built by someone else, they should have installed that. Google Search Console is more for developers to use, but it's something that just shows you a bit more information than analytics from a perspective of what keywords come up on your site and where your links are coming from. So it's better from an SEO perspective to also have Google Search Console installed. You install it the same way as analytics. You just got to install a bit of code on your website. So there, I guess, all the tech components and the UX components of building a good website. So once you've got that base foundation right, your website's built, it's fast, it's designed to be mobile responsive, and we can crawl it, you want to write words on the page. If you don't have words on the page, it's going to be really hard for you to rank. There's differences, like e-commerce stores tend to not need as many words as, say, a service-based business that's quite competitive. But you need to look to be able to see who's ranking well. And Google doesn't choose, oh, I'm going to rank something that's 1,000 words, not something that's 200 words. It doesn't. It chooses the best content to rank. And it makes a decision on what that best content is. So there's not a magical word count you write necessarily that's going to, you know, help you rank. It's basically make the best web page for any given search term that you're going after. That's what Google's looking for. That's what it's going to rank. Ideally, you need it to be comprehensive. You'll find the pages that are ranking well for competitive things, they're going to have a decent chunk of words on the page. And you want to make it easy to read. So just we've sort of talked about people are searching on the mobile phone. Big chunks of copy, anything more than 2-3 lines is going to take up your whole mobile screen. So bullet points, headings, buttons throughout. Don't just put one button way down the bottom of the page. Put them in each section of the site. So people are getting that ability to interact with you, contact you at every point of that page. We don't read, very rarely do we read a whole page of content. We scan. And our readability when we're on mobile phone or even when we're just on the internet is about that of a 7th or 8th grader. So if you're writing really technically complicated stuff like you would a university article or, you know, a journal paper or something, it's the wrong way to write for your website. You need to really keep it simple. So subheaders, one thought per paragraph, keep them short, break it up, use bullet points. And one thing I want to mention as well is your customer's experience with the words and the tone of voice of your business starts before they get to your site. In the Google search results, you have what's called a title tag and a meta description. So the blue line you see in the search results, and then like 2 gray lines underneath it. That's called a title and meta tag. Most people, they just leave the default title and meta description and just pulls through the first few words on your page in the meta description. And the title tag is just default, which usually if it's category pages will be called archive or something silly like that. So you want to make sure that you're actually using your language of your brand in that title tag and meta description. That meta description is your 2-line sales pitch for you to say if you're an e-commerce store, we accept Afterpay, we do overnight delivery, or we've been working in the industry for 20 years, or whatever it might be. We're the only person on the Coffs coast that does X, Y, and Z. We only employ locals. Whatever your selling point is, put it in that 2-line pitch, because that's going to maybe encourage someone to click you in position 2 than the person in position 1 if you sell your story better in that literal split second in those search results. So that's really a content perspective. None of my GIFs are working. It's a little bit tragic. They were really good and really hilarious, I must say. I'm just going to quickly see if I could jump to this, open it again and see if they work. Apologies to the people on the end, but I really worked hard on this GIF game, I must say. So let's see if we can get them to work. Here we go. Yes, that's the one. All right, we're back. I think we've got them. There we go. All right. So keyword research. This is the #1 thing that people get so wrong when it comes to SEO. Because what you need to be doing is be ranking for words that people are searching for and that are also achievable for you. So I don't think you'd mind me saying it, but I had a client who is a gym, essentially. but they didn't want to call themselves a gym. They wanted to call themselves like a fitness center or something like that, because that was more in line with their brand and how they wanted to come across. I'm like, well, 720 people a month search for Coffs Harbour Gym, and no people search for fitness center Coffs Harbour, basically. So even though your brand is, you're a bit more of an all-encompassing fitness center, if you want Google to love you, we actually have to call you a gym somewhere on your page. And we worked it out, we ranked well, it's great. But the thing is, a lot of people try and rank for things that are the wrong things. So say for me, for example, as a copywriter, I don't want to rank ever, if I'm honest, for the singular word copywriter. It would be an ego thing for me to rank in number one, because people searching copywriter are probably other copywriters, or they don't know what a copywriter is. They get it confused with copyright, which is a totally different legal thing. I want people to be searching copywriter Coffs Harbour, financial services copywriter, legal copywriter, SEO copywriter, those things that might have less search volume a month, like small business bookkeeper, not just bookkeeper in general, virtual assistants for entrepreneurs, whatever it might be. Don't try and take over the world and say, I want to rank for this. You just won't achieve it. And there's reasons later on as to why you do that. So sometimes you will need a helping hand as to what that keyword research is. Sometimes it's relatively easy. For me, copywriter Coffs Harbour, website design Coffs Harbour, all those kind of things, they're pretty easy, standard location-based ones I want to rank for, but then there's niches within that I want to rank for. So think of that within your business. You're not going to rank for, virtual assistants Australia overnight. It's just not going to happen. You have to think a little bit more long tail, it's called, keywords that are probably a few more words. They've got a decent search for you, but they're less competitive. And this is the most important. They have the right intent. So what I mean by that, and this is kind of talks to the start, which I looked at, is there's 4 different types of keyword intent. There's transactional intent. If people are using in their Google search the words buy, the words price, the word affordable, register, subscribe, purchase, boom, baby, they're ready to buy. So that's what you want to know. If I type in buy Australian designer dress, Melbourne, whatever, like this is what this is, I am ready to buy that, right? Then you also have more informational intent, which has a place for a lot of, service-based brands like lawyers and accountants and things. How to, guide, tips to do your tax return, instruction, recipes if you're a blogger. So that's more going to be in your blog space. You've got things that are informational intent. And they're the 2 that are going to drive the bulk of the traffic to your website. What you need to understand there is that transactional one is more likely further down the buying funnel. They're ready to buy. If they're searching copywriter Coffs Harbour, 1, they know what a copywriter is. 2, they're in my town. I can convert them if I can get them on the phone. Informational, like I've got a lawyer who does fantastic with the blogs I've SEO optimized for them, but say they're ranking for, I don't know, like, can I move away when I've split up from my partner with my kids or something like that. They're in position 1, but they're a Melbourne-based lawyer. Someone could find that article from Cairns and they're never going to convert to being their customer. So you want to balance informational intent copy with transactional. Where information is really good is in a more holistic digital marketing strategy. So I was talking about this before, like repurposing the content from today. That's where informational how-to guides, like if you're at a high-to guide, top 10 tips for your tax return, that's 10 social media posts you've pretty much written yourself already. Use that. So that's informational intent. Investigational is people who are looking for reviews, or they want to compare this software with that software. Should I join the chamber, or should I join whatever it is, another business club in town? People looking for those versus comparisons or testimonials to know you've got the goods. They want to see that. That's the investigational intent. So again, that goes back to probably blogs and things like that, but it's less, they're still very much in the decision-making phase that you need to sell them on you. Transactional is always, always the keywords. When I do keyword research reports for clients, transactional words are always what I would choose for their main pages of their site, home, services, or product category pages. Informational, give them a list of blog topics people are searching. Navigational intent, you just, in essence, ignore this. Google's smart enough to rank for that. If someone types in Combank login, or they type in Westpac login, or they want to say, what's the address of the Chamber of Commerce, or whatever it might be, you're going to rank for that. Don't try and rank for that. They're just looking for a quick answer. What's the weather tomorrow? That type of thing. So you don't want to go after that. But this is where people go wrong. They really don't get that intent right for the keywords. And that's why I never promise a number one to any client I have, because that then leads me into the path of potentially going down the path of choosing a keyword for them that's wrong. I could rank first tomorrow for copywriter for purple aliens. No one's searching it. No one wants it. There's no traffic, but I've got my position one spot. So it's better for me to be in position 2 for copywriter Coffs Harbour than position 1 for copywriter for purple aliens, right? So that's the thing. We really want to focus in on intent, and that's where people get it wrong. This should be in your handout in the, the booklet that you've got, that yellow booklet that was sent out on email as well. This is a bit of a checklist on where to include your keyword on the page. If you decided that you want to go after small business bookkeeper as your keyword, you'd use it in your title tag, which is what appears in Google. Ideally, you want to include it in your main header on the page. You want to include it or a synonym of it, like I'll interchange copywriting, copywriter, writer, content writer as different words, so I don't say the same thing over and over again. But you want to put it in the first 100 words, potentially in subheaders, and I'm going to show example on my side in a sec. Ideally, obviously not on the homepage, but in other pages, if you're starting from scratch, in the URL name, in any image files you upload, don't upload image 1, 2, 3 like you get when you take a photo. You want to rename it, re-upload it, and change what's called your image alt description, which also helps for people with vision impairments and things like that. But it is a tiny, tiny ranking factor for SEO as well. And then I've also put last on there in your meta description, that 2-line tagline. Your meta description isn't a ranking factor for Google. Google has come out and said that. But as I said, it's your 2-line sales pitch. And when you type in the phrase, it bolds it in the search results. So it kind of makes you stand out a little bit. So I still like to, if I can do it, I include it in there as well. So that's, Yeah, so do you have a platform that your website is on, or are you building one? Yeah, that's right. You'd need to write like title and then code it in, and then it's called meta tag. Yeah. So you'd need to code that in manually. But if you're on a something like WordPress, you can install plugins, Yoast or RankBrain or Rank Math. Rank Math, I get confused because RankBrain is an algorithm update. So Rank Math is the name of the plugin. So there's plugins you can use in the likes of Squarespace and Wix and things like that. There's a section that calls page title, page description. So it might be named slightly different, but you should go in and make it different for every page. I see lots of websites that have the same default title tag and meta description for every page. So every page of your site is competing for the same thing. You're shooting yourself in the foot. Give yourself more chances of ranking different pages of your site. So that's, I guess, the cheat sheet. Whenever you're writing a blog for your site, wherever you're writing a page for your site, have I put those keywords there? So let's look at that on a page on my site that ranks really well. I don't have an insanely authoritative site. I'm going to explain that more in the next slide or two because I've just rebranded. So all my links and stuff I've got in the past, I've lost them because I've changed to a new domain and I couldn't get them all across. But this page is written ridiculously well from an on-page SEO perspective. So my main header on the page is financial services copywriting. My URL, which might be a little hard to read, is financial services copywriting. My title tag and meta description, which appears in Google, has financial services copywriter or copywriting in it. My main headers on the page talk about that. If you go to this page and read it, it won't feel too unnatural that they're there. But when you're looking at it all at once, you're like, oh my God, that's a lot. And you can see there in that images, that last one's called financial services copywriting. And then I've thrown in a few more things, fintech, insurance, copywriter, because people are searching for fintech copywriter, insurance copywriter, that type of thing. So this page I think is in position 2. The person that beats me is the #1 woman in SEO in the country, Kate Tudor name. So I can't outrank her because she's got such an authority shine. She knows it. We're good friends. But in essence, that is a page. Go to that if you need to, and you can check what a perfectly on-page optimized page looks like. Now I want to talk about the final piece of the puzzle of those 3 pillars, and that is backlinks. Am I getting a bit close to time? I'm mindful, apologies. Yeah, I probably am. Okay, cool. I'll try and power through a bit quick. So the 3rd pillar is backlinks. So this is actually the hardest part of SEO for most people. Even for me as an SEO consultant, this is the hardest thing to do. A backlink is a link from another website to your website. So like the 6 Degrees page for Small Business Month might have put the URL for my brand. That's a backlink to my site. That's helping. They've got a high authority site. That helps increase the authority of my site. So listing yourself on the Chambers Shop Local directory, do it. Like you're crazy not to, because it helps to boost your SEO rankings. And also if you've got relationships with other people, for example, like, you know, I might be a copywriter and work with a graphic designer and we put a partner page on it or that kind of thing. So if you can get quoted in the media, that's even better. And they give you a link. That's getting harder and harder these days to do. But you want to work on getting links from other websites to your website, because there's a thing that's called page rank or domain authority. I'm just going to talk about domain authority, which a company called Moz invented. And it's a score between like 1 and 100. So a website like Facebook or LinkedIn is going to have a domain authority of like 98, 99, because all of us on our own websites link to our social media channels, right? So almost every website on the planet trusts Facebook. I spoke at the start of the presentation. Google, you refers people you trust. So this is where this all kind of ties in. What you want to be able to do is get those links from other high authority sites, and it increases your score. So this is when someone comes to me and says, I want to rank in the #1 position for bookkeeper Coffs Harbour. If the person who's ranking in position 1 has a well-optimized page already, the words on the page, and it's a fast site and they've got, say, a domain authority score of 30, and you're a brand new site, which you're going to have a domain authority score of 1, maybe 2, it's not going to be overnight for you to be able to outrank them. It's very difficult because Google trusts their website more than yours. So that's where you go those more long tail things. You need to go for small business bookkeeper, Coffs Harbour, virtual bookkeeper, I don't know what it might be. But you need to look for those keywords that those big brands aren't going after, that you can capture when your website's in that more infancy stage. And you also want to look to do links between the different pages of your site. On my website, like I'll have a website design page. Down the bottom, there's little icons to my copywriting page, my design page, my training page, my workshops page. So I'm getting people flowing through from one page to my site. It's the interwebs. It's a web. You want people to be going from one page of your site to another. So don't be afraid to link from one spot to another. Like, yep, sorry, you had a question.
Another question on Instagram, where you've got Linktree and then you have all the links to your other
Yeah.
whatever. So would that qualify in that sort of link?
Not really. You're probably getting probably a bit too techie for this, but the question just for those on the Zoom was, if you use Linktree on Instagram, like in your bio, will those links help towards SEO? The answer is likely no, because there'll be no follow links. When you publish a blog on Facebook, from your site, but it's published on Facebook, when people link back to your site, that's what's called a no follow link. Google's smart enough to know not to give you juice from Facebook, like love from Facebook essentially. So no, and I would actually suggest, controversial, not using Linktree at all. I would suggest creating a page on your site that acts as a Linktree landing page in essence. So you build a page on your site that is literally just all links, because what you're doing then is you're getting the traffic to your site, you're pixeling them if you've got the Facebook pixel installed. You're increasing the traffic to your site, which, you know, increased traffic, people staying on your site longer is a ranking factor for Google. It's called dwell time. So I would kill Linktree if I could. And there's lots of marketers that use it and they probably hate me saying it, but it's make it on your own website. Like, it's the best thing you could possibly do. So yeah, that will be a no follow link. You won't, it's not worth it. And this is the final bit I want to talk about, because if a lot of you are local businesses wanting to work with other local businesses, this is your quickest win. And this is your secret weapon to rank quickly. It's what's called your Google My Business listing. So you appear in that local pack. So you can see here, there's actually quite a lot of things you can do now. It used to just be you list your address and your phone number, and pretty much from there, you get reviews on it. But make sure you fill in that description. You've got 750 characters, and you can see in that one there, I talk about marketing, I talk about SEO, I talk about copywriting, talk about social media. All those keywords people are searching for, I've put in my description. And same with this one, he sells security doors in Shepparton. So he talks about the type of security doors and he does fly screens. He's put those words in there. He's also linked, you can now add products to your Google My Business listing, because the biggest growth area for SEO this decade is what's called branded search. So people might go away and not remember my brand name, but oh, that Cath Fowler, she spoke, and search my name. Or they might remember the digital Laneway and they'll search my name. So the biggest traffic driver, even some big clients that I work with, the biggest driver of traffic to the site is their brand name and or the owner's name. So that's something to bear in mind when people type that in. This is like a free ad on the side of a page that you can fill in. You can add posts to it. You can add questions. You can write the questions, because who asked the questions is not visible, only who answered the question. So you can write your own questions and answer your own questions. You can't really tell people what to fill in on in a review, but one of the ranking factors for your Google My Business is it's helpful if reviews include the keywords. So you see, if someone says here, like, her copywriting skills are the best, cool, it's got copywriter in there. If someone said, oh, she's the best person ever, it actually is not as helpful to me than if they're saying she's great at SEO, she's great at copywriting, she's great at building websites. Can't tell people what to write there in reviews, but that is a factor that ranks into it. So yeah, it's something to bear in mind. So this is a bit of checklist as well, which is in your booklet. These are all the areas you can now add to Google My Business. Add your description, use the full 750 characters. Don't be shy. I see people with 1-2 lines. Fill it all in. You can now add categories and service areas if you're a service-based business. So if you're a bookkeeper, you offer tax returns, you offer BAS statements, whatever it is, put it in there. You can add photos, and if you add photos regularly, it shows that they rank better. Add your services, add your products, get reviews, add posts, and consider, and why I've said consider is consider enabling messaging on your website, on your Google My Business listing, but you're going to have to know that people expect an answer straight away. So don't enable it if you're not going to have someone who can answer those, because you'll shoot yourself in the foot. I feel like I have run a little bit over, so I will just go through these real quickly. A lot of people think that if you duplicate content, you'll get a Google penalty. It's absolutely untrue. All that will happen, I've written a blog for my website, and then news.com.au asked if they could publish it. And I said, yeah, sure, if you pay me. So they did, and then they published it. All that meant is their website is more authoritative than my website. Google ignores my page of that blog and it ranks their page. So duplicate content is crap. from the perspective of, if you're an e-commerce store and you're just writing the description that's the same blurb as what's on the manufacturer's or the main brand's website, they're going to rank, you're going to be ignored. You won't get penalized by Google, you'll just be ignored by Google. You won't go into Google jail for it. Google AdWords influence SEO. I hear this a lot. Oh, we've got to spend on Google ads to be able to get those rankings in SEO. I've not ever spent a cent on AdWords because I rank well in SEO. People that tell you that Google AdWords influence SEO, what do sell you? Google Ads management and SEO management. They want to sell both. It has a quasi effect in that if you are not ranking at all, you can get traffic to your site. They could stay there a while, dwell on your site. That's a factor in SEO. So there's an indirect, but it's definitely not Google saying, oh, that person's spending money with me, so I'm going to rank them in the organic results. It doesn't happen like that. And then you'll hear a lot of things from people saying that building links is bad. Building bad links is bad. If you go and try and get someone, pay someone $5 to get you 100 links on Fiverr, they're going to get you dodgy links from dodgy sites, porn sites, just dodgy sites, right? That kind of link building is bad and it's going to impact your site. But building links in general is exactly what you need to do to get those higher rankings. So I've probably run out of time for questions. I apologize. I probably packed in too much stuff, but yeah.